Today I bring you two stories. First, I present the story of Okiku, the possessed doll, a Japanese tale that unfolded in the early 20th century. The second story is shared by one of our followers, to whom I extend my gratitude, Mrs. Idalia Ortega. Thank you very much for sharing this account, and without further ado, let's begin with the first story of Okiku, the possessed doll. This story originates from the mythical lands of Japan. Ikishi Suzuki, at the age of 17, was on a maritime tour in the Sapporo area. Sapporo is renowned for its excellent craftsmen, and with the perfect weather and cherry blossoms in full bloom, Suzuki took the opportunity to stroll through the streets of Sapporo, purchasing souvenirs for the family, especially for his beloved 2-year-old sister, Okiku. Lost in the narrow, bustling streets filled with the delightful aroma of freshly made noodles, colorful umbrellas, and fine silk kimonos, time slipped away. Suddenly finding himself in a quieter part of the town, away from the hustle and bustle, where houses and the few shops present had an ancient and somewhat gloomy appearance, Ikichi began to feel a bit uneasy for some reason. He decided to return to the livelier part of the city. As he retraced his steps, he unexpectedly came across the charming eyes of a small doll. It was a 15-inch doll dressed in traditional kimono, with lovely black hair cascading down to its shoulders. Seeing the doll, Ikishi knew it was the perfect gift for his sister. He entered the store, spoke to the owner, and offered to buy the toy. The price of the doll was precisely the amount he had in his pocket, not a penny more, not a penny less. Suzuki returned home with the precious gift for his sister. Okiku fell in love with the doll, and from that moment on, they were inseparable. Okiku loved her doll so much that she even named it after herself. 1 year later, in 1919, a yellow fever epidemic spread through the region, and little Okiku fell victim to this terrible affliction. Okiku spent her last moments surrounded by her family, with eyes wide with fear, suffering severe pain, and struggling for breath. Okiku breathed her last breath while holding on to her dear friend, the doll. At the time of her passing, Okiku was only 3 years old. The Suzuki family wanted to bury Okiku with her inseparable friend so that she would have company in the afterlife. However, due to the epidemic and government-imposed restrictions, they were unable to bury them together. So, they decided to place the doll on the family altar, where they paid tribute to dear Okiku and other departed family members. One day, they noticed that the doll's hair had grown. The hair, which had previously reached its shoulders, now extended to its waist. The texture of the hair was different, the color had changed, and the nails on its hands had also grown. But these physical changes were not the only paranormal occurrences around Okiku. At night, the doll appeared in the family's dreams, and in the mornings, it was found in the rooms next to the beds. As time passed, paranormal manifestations increased. The lights in the house turned off on their own, disembodied voices were heard, and strange knocks and other eerie noises began. These paranormal phenomena were particularly intense as important days approached, such as Okiku's birthday or the anniversary of her death. The family was convinced that it was the spirit of little Okiku manifesting through the doll. Various shamans from the region, upon hearing the story, approached the Suzuki residents to verify if the phenomenon was real or just the family's imagination. All the shamans, mediums, and witches who came to check were more than convinced of the authenticity of the phenomenon. For them, it was evident that Okiku's spirit lived in the doll, and they also knew that over the years, that energy became more powerful. However, those who saw the doll or had any contact with it experienced horrible nightmares, and the paranormal phenomena they encountered were terrifying. Years later, the family decided to move to another prefecture, but they wouldn't take Okiku with them. The Suzuki family was convinced that the manifestations occurred because the doll was physically close to the mortal remains of the girl. So, they spoke to the monks at the local temple to take care of Okiku. The monks gladly agreed to host the doll. However, paranormal events soon began. Okiku appeared in dreams to the monks and played pranks in the temple. To this day, Okiku's hair continues to grow, and the monks ensure to keep it trimmed. Recently, they sent hair samples from the doll for analysis, and scientists concluded that it was indeed the hair of a girl. Over the years, Okiku's power has continued to strengthen. Many tourists have claimed that the doll has haunted them in dreams even today. Okiku is now hosted in a private temple in Hokkaido, Japan. Many who have seen the doll still report being haunted by their dreams. And the second story sent by our friend and collaborator Idalia Ortega is also about a doll, Baby Talk. Hello, my name is Idalia Ortega, and I want to share one of the many paranormal experiences I have had throughout my life. As far back as I can remember, I always stayed at my aunt's house in Oakland, California. I loved going to my aunt's house to play with my neighborhood friends, especially with the neighbor's son, who was roughly the same age. The neighbor also had an older daughter, about 5 years older than us. Her room was filled with toys, including a doll wearing pink overalls and brown teddy bears. The battery-operated doll, named Baby Talk, spoke various phrases like "I love you," "I'm hungry," and many others that I don't recall. Like any teenager, the neighbor's daughter didn't like us entering her room and touching her things. But one day, when she wasn't home, her brother and I took the opportunity to enter the room and search for materials we needed to make a Play-Doh volcano. When we entered, I saw the doll lying halfway among other stuffed animals. After getting what we needed, I turned around and saw the doll again, this time sitting up. A chill ran down my spine. It scared me, and we ran out of the room. Some time later, the neighbor gave my aunt a box full of clothes and toys that her daughter no longer used. To my surprise, among the toys was that doll. My aunt gave me the doll, and I took it to my mom's house. Strange things started happening as soon as the doll entered the house. I noticed that when I returned from school, the doll wasn't always where I left it. There were nights when, suddenly in the darkness, the doll would start talking without anyone activating it, saying, "I love you," and "I'm hungry." This went on for several nights until my sisters began to notice what was happening with the doll. My older sisters told me to remove the batteries from the doll, as it was scaring them when it spoke on its own. I removed all the batteries and left it on the bed one day. When I returned from playing, it was with my two sisters in our room. Suddenly, the doll started talking and repeated, "I'm hungry." My sister, a bit annoyed, accused me, saying, "Didn't I tell you to remove the batteries?" I replied that I did and even showed her, leaving her a bit confused. So, my sister told me to take it to another room. The doll lit up and said, "But I love you," repeating it over and over. In disbelief, my sister took the doll and checked to make sure I wasn't lying. Indeed, the doll had no batteries. She thoroughly examined it to ensure there was no internal battery, and there was nothing, it was empty. Immediately, we took the doll and threw it over the backyard fence, a fence that divided our house from the neighbor's house. In the early morning, the distant echo of the doll saying, "But I love you. Don't you love me? I'm hungry," could still be heard. That weekend, my dad gathered all the trash from the house to take it to the city dump, and with a stick, I went and retrieved the doll from where I had thrown it. I put it in the trash-filled truck. My dad took it away, and we never heard from it again. My sisters and I occasionally reminisce about that event, an event that would shape my life to the point that when I had my daughter, I never bought her a doll. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, leave us a like, and if you haven't done so yet, subscribe. Thank you, and see you in the next one.